So Herm Gailey here, a little different kind of video. I'm sitting in the house, which is not my accustomed place. And unfortunately, I have to tell you, you may see a few more videos coming from the house. I was involved in a bit of a horse wreck about 10 days ago. And I'll give you sort of the facts of it, but it ended up with some injuries that have me kind of sidelined for a period of time. So here are the facts. 10 days ago, I'm riding Mike. He's a big, and some people will say predictably, Hancock horse. He is broke. He's reliable. He has been trail ridden everywhere. This particular day, and for a couple of days, he was a little edgy because there was some tree work being done, some thinning of timber in the woods near our place, and the trees coming down and the equipment had all the horses kind of on alert. So I rode him in the pen, just got him loosened up, got him relaxed, got a little of the edge off. It's winter, but I've been riding him regularly. It's been a mild spell. And he started out a little bit on edge, but really seemed to have come down. Went for a little ride outside just through the fields to kind of finish up our session. And as I was returning to the barn, he made a big move and I made a little move. Something spooked him. That particular reaction came from nowhere. In other words, he wasn't spooking repetitively, but I should have been aware that he was on edge and was more likely to spook than otherwise. Long story short, I hit hard. I was actually falling downhill a bit, and he's a big horse, so probably fell 6.5, 7 feet. And it was pretty much a slam dunk into my middle back and ribs, and was pretty sure, well, let's put it this way, when I hit the ground, I felt my ribs give. I felt them cave. And so I fortunately had my cell phone. I called my wife. She gets in the car, comes down to get me. She sees Mike around, down there along the small local road, but she did what any good horse person would do. She said, "Are you okay?" By phone, I said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm going to put the horse away." So she put the horse away because otherwise he'd have got in trouble. I had to walk. Didn't have to, but I was just, rather than waiting there in the field, I had got to my feet, walked about a quarter of a mile to the car, drove it up to meet her at the barn, and she took me to the hospital. So they did all the workup. And it's a funny thing about ribs. They find them hard to count, to get an accurate count on rib fractures, because there's a lot of cartilage there, and sometimes they actually apparently show up as they're healing. They'll say, "Well, you broke another rib," or this or that. Fresh rib fractures are a little bit hard to diagnose. They did a CT, and it showed multiple, the way they phrased it was multiple right-sided rib fractures around the back of my rib cage, close to my spine. So what I'm told is these were more severe than others because they were displaced. They were not perfectly lined up, the fracture ends. And there were 3 of them at least in a row. And what they said is, we just quit counting at 3. We counted your birthdays, we counted the number of fractures, and said, we're going to hospitalize you. So they put me in the hospital for a day or 2. And it was a rough spell and sent me home, and it's kind of been a rough spell. If you've had broken ribs, it's not comfortable. They typically won't kill you, but you may wish they would. The big concern particularly with people who've got a few birthdays, is if you're not taking deep breaths, you can get pneumonia, and that can really spiral out of control. So, they were satisfied that I was doing better than anticipated getting my wind. I will tell you that I wanted to get out of the hospital, and I didn't want to get more problems. So, you take that deep breath, whether it's easy to take or not. And by persisting in that, I'm now breathing much more easily. Sleeping in a recliner, all the stuff you do when you have something like this. I can tell you this isn't the first time I've had broken ribs, but it's exponentially more painful and limiting than either of the several other occasions I've had one or two rib fractures that were not displaced and maybe didn't involve this level of impact, and which the last rib fracture I had was a few years back, and that's always a factor. So I'm allowed to do very limited things. I'm sleeping in a recliner, which I had from shoulder surgery a few years back, that lets me stay out of the long prone position that really would kill me. I still can't get in bed comfortably. So I'm sleeping in the recliner. I'm doing desk work. I go out and feed, but I'm only allowed to carry a maximum of 4 pounds, under 5 pounds. So that's about 1 scoop of feed. It just means I make more trips. And my wife helps. She wants to do it all, but I kind of can't let that happen. Too stubborn. And I'm allowed to walk, and I walk as much as I can put up with. So, you know, that's all good, and time will take care of this, and I'm just sort of on hold. But what you find yourself doing, and maybe you should do, is sort of an autopsy on the wreck itself. You know, what went into it. And my takeaway generally is that my margin of safety and my margin for error in dealing with these horses, particularly younger horses, is shrinking and smaller than I realized. The same thing that happened with this horse, if it had happened 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, I would have ridden through it, and I would have said, damn, he made a big move. Instead, I'm lying down thinking to myself, damn, he made a big move and I didn't. So it causes moments of doubt. I'm almost too proud to admit that, but maybe it's worthwhile if I do. You know, I mean, what should I expect going forward? I've always been confident. I don't think I've been overconfident until recently, and you're the last one to know. I thought I was well within my skill level, and I was making up for, admittedly, what we all go through, a deterioration of reaction time, deterioration of balance, deterioration in the strength and reaction that helps you to recover if you're about to be unseated, and replace that with preparation and a pretty good sense of anticipation of what might happen and when. But you know, you get involved in a situation that doesn't unfold the way you think it was gonna, you get a surprise, and this is the price. I will say that it would be too easy to say this was a fluke or a freak accident. Yeah, every freak accident is really just the sum total of a whole concatenation of circumstances, as one fellow liked to say. That one thing after another adds a little something to the scale, and then the scale just tips over. You know, was the horse a little on edge? Yeah. Could I have spent more time getting him warmed up and relaxed? Well, as things turned out, I could have. Should I have been riding him up, approaching the woods that had been the source of concern as they logged up there, and not been at least more aware that he might overreact? Yep, I could have been. And what you hope is that you take that lesson and you use it constructively. You know, there were too many signals I ignored. There was what I see now as overconfidence. Sometimes you got to test those limits, and when you fail the test, you get hurt and you regroup. You know, your job is to derail that chain of little negative events that culminate in a big wreck. And in this case, I didn't do that. So there was one little thing, no big deal, and I thought it was okay. Another little thing, and I should have said to myself, you know, all those little things can add up to that big move and the big fall. So what it's caused me to do is to doubt, but not blame the horse. You know, that's not the right horse. Is he going to do this again? Do I want to find out? And I guess the answer is, yeah, he's a good horse. Bad circumstances, I'll do better next time. But those moments of doubt remain. I doubt my own courage, which is frankly something I've never doubted before. I've never been particularly fearful around horses. I mean, pretty much not. I've weighed risks, I've taken them, but I'm a pretty cool head. I think I'll stay that way, but my risk tolerance is going to and probably needs to shrink. That kills me to think that, but it's better than having it kill me when I ignore it. So I'm going to be a little more cautious. I'm going to be a little more prepared. I'm going to anticipate a little more, and I'm going to have my horse a little more ready so that those things don't happen, and so that I recognize those warning signs that are so small that you ride by and you forgive the horse and you forgive the day and you forgive yourself, and the sun's shining and it's all good, and then all of a sudden you're looking up at the sky flat on your back. Of course you worry that this was just a warning. You know, you become, and I have become, very aware of the potential. You know, I don't like having broken ribs, but it's better than having a broken back. It's better than having a broken neck. Actually, I've had a broken neck and I didn't enjoy it a damn bit. You don't want to go there again. So you say to yourself, well, what are the options? Because denial is no longer an option. I mean, my name should be Herm Gailey, MD. And that doesn't stand for medical doctor, it stands for massive denial. Because you look on the sunny side, and it tends to make good things happen when you're optimistic, until the fool killer pays you a visit and says, you're just being stupid, and here's the price. And none of us should want to pay that price. None of us should accept it. You accept the risk, you minimize it, and you decide if it's worth it. So I will tell you, the only other option would be to quit. And to me, that's a foreign word. I don't even like the flavor of it in my mouth. It's the only time you'll hear me say, well, maybe I should just quit. Well, bullshit on that. If I find myself lacking the competence that I need, yeah, I change a lot. Fair enough. But the idea of saying, well, I had a warning and now I'm going to heed it and I'm going to give up what has driven my life for the last 60 some years of riding, I'm not prepared to do that. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to try to fix the problems. I'm going to try to recognize the limitations and accept them and acknowledge them. I'm going to try to install some new cautions, and I'm going to get back on. The wreck and the moments of doubt that followed have had a real educational value. But starting right now, those moments are over. Thanks. Come back and see us.